I previously spoke about the difference between the intellectual and the primitive mind. So in the intellectual mind, we tend to be positive. We tend to be able to think rationally, intellectually, be creative and find solutions and rational solutions to our problems and challenges. Whereas in the primitive mind, we tend to be negative. We tend to negatively forecast, always look for the worst case scenario, be obsessive, highly vigilant. We can be depressed, anxious, and angry. And we tend to be habitual because we're unable to think intellectually and creatively. So what causes us to move from the intellectual to the primitive part of the brain? Well, when we become anxious, we'll tend to move from the intellectual part of the brain to the primitive part of the brain. We'll lose that intellectual control. So the next question is, what causes anxiety? Well, anxiety is caused by negative thinking. So it's not what's going on in our world that causes us to be anxious, but it's how we think about that. So if you think about it, not everybody who experiences similar things to us will feel the same as us. Everyone's got a different perspective on the world. And for some people, things are more stressful than others, and they might have certain things that really stress them out, which we might not find stressful, and vice versa. So anxiety is caused by negative thinking, as I said, and we can think about that as our in the context of our metaphorical stress bucket, which is a metaphor for the hippocampus and the primitive mind. Now, the day, as we're really busy or having a lot of negative thoughts, all of our negative thoughts go into our metaphorical stress bucket, and they build up throughout the day. And there might be things already in our stress bucket from previous experiences in our life, previous trauma, perhaps. So we can think of those as kind of boulders in our stress bucket. But these negative thoughts are building up throughout the day. And if we have a particularly stressful day or have a lot of negative thoughts or a very busy day, they might reach a tipping point whereby we start to feel really anxious. Now, the good news is that we do have a natural way of emptying this stress bucket. Think of it as a tap on the stress bucket, perhaps. And that happens when we sleep. So during sleep, there's a part of our sleep cycle called REM, rapid eye movement. I'm sure a lot of people will have heard of that. Now, during REM, we process the negative thoughts of the day, and we take the emotion away from them. So they're moved from the primitive part of the brain, where we can feel quite emotional about them, to the intellectual part of the brain, where we're able to see them with perspective and clarity. If you think about it, I'm sure you'll be familiar with this process. So, there'll have been a time when someone's cut you up in traffic, or you've had an argument with a neighbor or a colleague, and they've really wound you up. And you've gone to bed that night, and then the next morning you've woken up and you've been able to see the situation with perspective and clarity, and maybe it's not such a big deal, or maybe you've even just forgotten about it. That also happens. The phrase "sleep on it" is there. It's created for a reason, and it's based on this cycle in our sleep. Now, obviously, not everybody wakes up in the morning with an empty stress bucket. Some of us wake up still feeling anxious, still feeling depressed, still feeling angry. And part of the reason can be because we haven't slept so well. So the REM process is a small part of our sleep cycle, and we need we need to have slept well in order for us to have had enough REM sleep in order to process the thoughts of the day, especially if we've got a lot of negativity in our life, especially if we're very busy. For others, the opposite might happen. If we're very stressed or very busy, we're encouraged to sleep, and we can wake up in the morning just feeling exhausted. And that's because REM takes up a lot of mental energy to process these negative thoughts. So if we've got a very full stress bucket, very busy lives, a lot of stress in our lives, then it can take up a lot of energy. So in either of these situations, we're waking up the next morning with our stress bucket is still pretty full. We're waking up in the primitive part of our brain. We're starting off on the wrong foot, starting our day off badly with depression, anxiety, or angry, feeling angry. And we're starting off the day like that, and we're just in this perpetual cycle of negativity. So obviously a good starting point is to work on your sleep cycle and to make those more efficient. And that's how I help clients, but also to work on putting less into the stress bucket, but also work on emptying the stress bucket again, which is a key part of the work that I do with clients. As always, if you have any questions, please just shout. Always happy to talk through these concepts with anyone.